Hello, this is Adam with DreamMade Productions. This video is made possible by the very kind donations of viewers like you. Thank you. If you are in a position to help this channel improve quality and grow, please visit my Patreon page at www.patreon.com/DreamMadeProductions, linked below. Hey guys, so I wanted to start with the G.I. Joe stuff. So this is a sorta kinda G.I. Joe episode. The reason I say that is as a kid, my family didn't have a whole lot of money. We weren't completely broke, but most of me growing up, funds were very limited, so I kinda had to make do with what I had and what I was given. And of course, like any other kid, I would ask Santa for stuff that Santa couldn't bring. So my parents did the best they could. G.I. Joes were great for that, because at the time you could go to a department store and pick up a G.I. Joe figure for $2, $3, something like that. So my parents could buy me a few of them for Christmas, and then a vehicle or 2 small vehicles or something like that. Those were kind of the things I got for Christmas. Other times, like for my birthday, or if I did a good job on a test or something, I might get something else that you could use with G.I. Joe. So let's take a look at some of the stuff that I have that doesn't really fit in once I go with all the G.I. Joe stuff. First off, let's start with something that is actually G.I. Joe. Well, sort of. So, I have no idea where this came from, but I have this G.I. Joe ring. It says G.I. Joe seal, and it has wetsuit on it, or deep six, but I'm assuming this is wetsuit. It's too small for anything else. I can't find a copyright date or anything on it. I don't know if this came out of like a cereal box, or it was included with a figure or vehicle, or if it was like a gumball machine, or I have no idea where this originally came from, but I found it in the bottom of another box and put it aside to show it here. Obviously, me being a tubbo, it doesn't fit me anymore. Barely even fits on my pinky. But I'm going to keep this. I'm going to keep it around. Just going to be in with my G.I. Joe kind of random stuff. Next up, I have a puzzle. Milton Bradley, 60 pieces. As you can see here, it's from, 88 or 89. You got Battle Armor Cobra Commander, what looks like to be a Techno Viper. We got Law up there. I'm guessing that's supposed to be Chuckles. Tunnel Rat. Honestly, I don't remember his name. And Falcon here, like totally pulling a badass move of rappelling out of a helicopter onto what I can only assume is a fast-moving stun with no driver. So, yeah, I mean, we got some good figures here that are, I'm assuming, what was on the pegs at the time, along with some older stuff. Wonderful, wonderful puzzle here. I'm not big into puzzles, to say the least. I hate puzzles, but this is a puzzle I put together as a kid with my mom. She loves puzzles, so that worked out when I was a little kid. To my knowledge, it's complete in here. You know, I'm not sure what to do with this thing. Part of me wants to take it up to my mom's house, put it together, and turn it into like a poster. I don't know if I would glue it, but, you know, put it together and put it in a picture frame and hang it up somewhere. Part of me says, you know, I hate puzzles, and I don't know. I'll have to give this some thought. It might get sold, or it might get turned into a piece of art and hung up on the wall. So next up, I wanted to show you some of my G.I. Joe comic books. Now, I never had many as a kid, but I'm pretty sure this is the first one that I ever got. It was a long time. God, I don't even know when exactly I got this, but it was a long time before I got my first G.I. Joe comic book. I grew up, of course, with the cartoon show and the figures, and I do remember this is my first one, and anybody that's looking at it knows exactly which comic book this is. If I was going to start with a comic book, going from the show to the comic book, and you wanted to shock the hell out of I don't know, preteen me, then this would have been the way to go, because this is the episode where Doc dies. To have someone actually die in a comic book. And here is the infamous page where Doc says his last words. "I think our luck just ran out." And the Saw Viper said, "You said a mouthful." Pop, 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 pop. With that M60, Doc is dead. Just like the rest of you are gonna be. You know? And then some battle tech worthy war crimes later. We do have the G.I. Joes escaping the pit, but yeah, to go from all the red and blue lasers of the cartoon show to bullets with casings flying out the side and people straight up dying. Quite the shock indeed. And passed the Comic Book Code Authority. So those jerks were still around when I was a kid. The Punisher video game for NES. I had to have read this comic book, God, 1,000 times. I just love this comic book. It was such a departure from the show. This thing, yeah, I'm holding on to it. If I only had one G.I. Joe comic book, okay, it would be the first one. But if I'm going to have two, I'd be torn between this, especially this in particular one, since it was my very first in my comic book. But if I had a wish list to add to this, it would be issue 1 and Silent Interlude. This was the second G.I. Joe comic book I ever got. As you can see, it's kind of in the 90s time period here. I remember reading this one a lot, and you know, by then the show was off the air, or was in the Deke era, one or the other, which might have been was for me off the air. I don't know. I remember reading this, but I don't remember that much about it other than this clown guy, and remembering as a kid having no idea who this dude was. And to this day, I know a little bit about the comics. I've sat down and read like some of the very early ones. Got a Bonk comic adventure here in the middle of the G.I. Joe comic book for the TurboGrafx 16. I completely forgot about that. Anyway, I know a little bit more about the comic books, but I do not know who the Silver Dude is, and I don't think I'll make it to him anytime soon. There is a Kickstarter up, I think, for all of the comics. Dragonlance. For all of the Marvel comics to be in hardback. I just can't afford that right now, but who knows, maybe if it hits comic book shops and is readily available in a few years, maybe I'll buy them all and sit down and read them. Next up, I have these bagged and boarded comic books. I know I read these, but these were bought $7 much later on. I think I bought these when I was late teens, maybe 18 or 19, maybe 20, 21, something like that. These are from the Civil War period. Still got the classic hisses here with a bat driving for some reason, but whatever, it's fine. Got the Baroness tied up here. Serpentor up top. Like I said, I know I opened and read these at some point, but they've been in these protectors ever since. I'm going to hold on to these for now. I don't know if they're even worth the $4 and $7 or whatever I paid for them, but I don't know. I'm going to hold on to them for now and see if they've gone up in value. If they're significantly more expensive, I may let these and this one go. If they're not worth anything of real value, I will probably get some bags and boards for these and just put them on display somewhere. Alright, so next I do have an official G.I. Joe product. I have the Fang 2, such as it is. This is how sometimes I would receive toys for just as presents or get handed them. This, as you can see, the gun won't even stay popped on this. This I am very sure that my parents bought like at a flea market or something, a yard sale. I don't have any of the missiles. I don't have the pods that go, oh, there it goes again. I don't have the pods that go on here. I don't have the tail. But you know what? I still kind of flew this thing around and played with it some. But yeah, you know, back in the day growing up, 1989, you know, you played with what you were given, so there we go. I have some of the Fang too. Now, I wanted tanks as a kid. I wanted the G.I. Joe tanks, the hiss and other things that I saw, especially in the cartoon. So one year I was excited when I was told I was getting a tank, and this is what I got for Christmas to go with some G.I. Joe figures. This, I have no idea who made this. It's made of very inexpensive plastic, and as you can see, it's been in storage forever. I need to clean this thing. For what I'm sure my parents paid for it, it's got a lot of play features to it, and I played with it a lot with my G.I. Joes. This was a very early toy for me. Just rolls on some plastic wheels here. It's got a tank gun there that will raise and lower very, very little. You know, it's got a little bit of movement to it. The turret will turn all the way around. The hatch here will open, and there is a little plastic guy in there. I thought maybe this went with those little plastic army men, and that might be where they got it, but the tanks that I've seen with the plastic army men are much smaller than this, so I'm not sure. And back here, where would be the engine compartment, opens up, and it is just empty. And, you know, you could sit some G.I. Joes in here and pretend that they were manning it, or you could put some weapons or something in there or whatnot. So it was somewhat useful. Like I said, I kind of think maybe this was to go with the little generic army men, but I don't know. And I Yeah, Processed Plastics Co. Montgomery, Illinois, 60538. Made in USA 7520. So apparently that's who made it. I don't know who they are, but that's who made it. I would imagine this was a, you know, Kmart or Dollar Tree, Dollar General toy that my parents picked up because they could not afford the Mobat or something like that. But yeah, a lot of memories playing with this thing, having it roll around as the G.I. Joe tank. This thing I'm definitely keeping. I'm gonna clean it and at some point put it back on display. Hello, future me here. I went looking for a little more information on this Processed Plastic Company out of Montgomery, Illinois. I managed to find a little bit of information. Sadly, it seems like they went out of business back in 2005. They were founded back in 1948 and mostly made little plastic toy cars and trucks and little army men, although not the generic army men I remember having. They had different little plastic army men, but whatever, maybe that's what this tank went to. I found this flyer online. Just sad to see another company go. Anyway, let's get back to my toy collection. As you can see, I moved the filming box because I have something kind of larger to show you. Again, I was wanting something cool for my, for Christmas or whatever, and to go with my G.I. Joe figures. And vehicles were always high on my list. And so one year I got this. This is another toy that went with the, probably came from, Big Lots or Kmart or Dollar General or something. Again, I know not much about this. I'm guessing there's probably not a lot to know about this, but this is a U.S. Army truck. It is sized much closer to G.I. Joe figures, and I think that was very much intentional, and we'll get into that. Another very basic truck. It's got some information down here. Oh, yep, another one from Processed Plastics Company. This one is 7130. Those must be the part numbers on it here. And as you can see, it just rolls on some big wheels here. And, the steering wheel does turn, but of course it doesn't do anything with the wheels. The doors don't open or anything. And the back, it's kind of hard to see in there, but there are seats back there. But I wanted to demonstrate that this thing is actually pretty cool. I went and found one of my figures that's actually in good shape. Now, I've never replaced any of the O-rings in these guys. So literally, Slaughter's Marauder's Spirit here has the original O-ring, vintage O-ring in him. So we're gonna fold his legs up here, move his arms some, and if you played with him just right, you could get him down in the seat there, and he fits much, much better. And this was a much more useful toy to play with the G.I. Joes than the tank was. It's a little tricky to get the figures in and out since the doors don't open, but it can be done. And in the back here, there are seats, and the G.I. Joes will sit on them. And they have little pegs here that will hold them in position. So, very, very cool. It's actually kind of hard to get them out. But I think, what was it? Processed Plastics. I think they, did this specifically for action figures. I don't know if they had their own line or if they were just cheating off Hasbro's homework, but either way, this was pretty nice toy to have. I would have preferred the G.I. Joe truck, which name is escaping me. I'll put that up here somewhere. But yeah, this was a cool toy to have. Played with this a lot. Sometimes would have as many of the G.I. Joes sitting back there as I could. For its price, I'm sure it was a cool toy to have, and I am going to keep this and also put this on display. Now, for a little backstory before we get into this last piece, my favorite fighter jet of all time is the F-14, and it's the Sky Striker. You know, watching it as a kid, I always thought it looked cool in G.I. Joe. When I was little, in the 80s, my mom watched Top Gun, and I thought that was an awesome movie. To this day, it just looks cool. Top Gun Maverick, seeing it come back, you know, with them saying how old everything was, when it was sitting in that hangar and you see it in the sky, those wings sweep forward and back, it still looks futuristic. So much stuff was built off the F-14. So obviously, the Sky Striker was a toy I really wanted as a kid. But by the time I was really old enough to ask for it, it was getting rare, you know, out of stores and stuff. And probably by the time my family could afford it, it was long gone. So one year I was told I was getting a plane for Christmas. I got excited. It was going to be the Sky Striker. And I got this. So as you can see, this is another, you know, generic plastic toy, and it is of an F-15. You know, hard to blame my parents. F-14, F-15, what's the difference? It's a fighter jet. This is cheaper, and we can actually find it. Whatever, he can play with this thing. Perfectly reasonable and logical. And I have to admit, whoever built this thing, was it processed plastics? Nope, somebody else. Anyway, whoever built this thing, they did a good job cramming a lot of play into something that they probably had very little budget on. So this thing does look cool. There is some detail to it. Not as much as you'd probably see on a G.I. Joe toy, but whatever. Had some stickers on it. This thing got played with a lot because, well, if I didn't have an F-14, I was going to play with an F-15. The canopy would open. It's broken. Long broken. But it would originally open. Pulling out Spirit from Slaughter's Marauders again. It was sized for G.I. Joe. I'm sure that was completely by accident back then. But he kind of fidgeted with him some. He would go in there. Double cockpit, so you got a Strike Eagle. And there we go. It would close, so the G.I. Joe figures would sit in there, and when this thing, before it broke, it had a latch here that, you know, it was just kind of held closed by a little bit of tension. But it, you know, if you turned it upside down, of course, it would fall open and the Joes would fall out. But if you just turned it to the side back then before it broke, it would stay on there fairly well. Speaking of, let's pull him out before I dump him out. On the underside, you had missiles. There was a peg here, but it's long since broken off and its missile is missing. And it would just peg on here. It has a little box and little gator teeth or whatever they're called there to peg them onto. So you had 4 missiles when this thing was new. 2 up front here on the nose. 2 back here. And the landing gear would fold up. And this thing was cool to play with. Flying it around, shooting missiles, doing strafing runs. Of the non-G.I. Joe toys, this was my favorite. Hey, if I wasn't going to get a Sky Striker, then this F-15 was going to be the G.I. Joe jet. And I was going to get into dogfights with something. Later on, this would get kind of replaced with another toy that I was quite fond of, but that's a story for another time. What do you guys think? Actually, you know what? Who made this thing? It was made by Gay Toys Inc. 799 LADD Road, Walled Lake, Michigan, 48088. Made in USA, item number 900. Okay, there's only one thing to do now. I gotta look up that address. Alright, that's coming soon. Let's take a look at that address. Future me here again. So I looked up the address and sure enough, it's still a plastics toy company. I don't know if it's the same company, but it's now referred to as American Plastic Toys. Maybe they changed their name. Maybe it's a completely new company. Looks like now their focus is on very young children based on their website, but hey, it's good to know that at least somebody's still here making some toys. Anyway, let's get back to my toys. Alright, well that was fun. Anyway, so guys, tell me what you think of this. Did you have the puzzle? Did you have collect G.I. Joe comic books? What did you think of the comic books versus the cartoon show? Did you have toys that you played with that you wanted something but got something else, and in some cases, you know, they worked out really well? Let me know below, and as always, I hope you enjoy the battle reps that are to come. Hello, this is Adam with Dream Made Productions. Thank you for watching my content. It really means a lot that you have given me the chance to entertain you. If you would like to support the channel, please visit my Patreon at patreon.com/DreamMadeProductions, linked below. Also below is a link for PayPal, or links if you would like to send crypto, if that's more your thing. Please know any amount that you give will be cherished and used to upgrade equipment and improve the channel. You can also help the channel by subscribing, turning on notifications, liking, commenting, and sharing my channel with anyone you think might be interested. Thank you again for watching, and I hope you enjoy the battle reps that are to come.